We're ready.
Take a moment and imagine a room. Only 3 walls and a wall occupied by bars. Then, you stay in this room for many years. And then, all of a sudden, you're thrust into a world completely foreign, unaware of anything that's going on. This is a reality many face today in America with our current prison system. Our prisons are impacted now more than ever. And even though America often touts itself as a very developed country with very sensible realities, our prison system is actually quite barbaric. I have done extensive research into our current prison system, and I am completely horrified at its state. Our current prison system treats its inmates like animals, fails in the rehabilitation of criminals, and we all must begin to view inmates as more human and less as people who deserve to be punished. And we all need to advocate for a healthier system. So, first of all, let's analyze the state of the system. Now, prisons today are not humane or helpful. This is mostly because of overcrowding, because of the massive increase in the population in recent years, as you can see here. Oh, also, all of these graphs you will see in my presentation are from an organization called the Sentencing Project, which is a very well-established advocacy group that fights for prison reform. And as a result of overcrowding, healthcare, mental illness treatment, and healthcare and mental illness treatment are often totally neglected within prisons, and you will often find terrible conditions within these prisons. Many say that this is fine because it acts as a deterrent, so criminals will refuse to commit a crime. However, a study by the American Law and Economics Review in 2007 revealed that harsh conditions had little to no effect on return inmates. And now, let's analyze rehabilitation. In his 2016 scholarly article, Will Champagne states, prisoners are often unable to reconnect with activities in daily life once they leave prison. In his article, he goes on to explain why activities such as fatherhood and just simply talking with family become difficult. This clearly shows how once you enter prison life, you kind of enter a new world totally alien from the outside, and it's honestly not healthy for anybody who enters it. And you might ask, why is it like this? Well, Mark Maurer, a leading expert on this subject and the criminal justice system in general, describes how private prisons actually are kind of one of the predominant methods used, and because these systems get paid to house inmates, they actually will encourage the use of their goal is not to rehabilitate these inmates, but it's actually to make sure these inmates stay in the prison. It's not stay in the prison necessarily, but they do not have a problem with inmates staying within the prisons. So, is there hope? And the simple answer is yes. For physical issues, you could look back to Mark Maurer's article, in that he describes how the simple way is to reduce overcrowding, and this is primarily through less sentencing, because as you can see how massive amounts of people we are sending to jail right now, and to reduce the length of sentencing, because as you can see, the life sentences have also increased, making the populations of our jails totally overwhelmed. And for rehabilitation, the primary method I saw when I was researching was education. In a study by Capella University, those who attain their GED in prison are far less likely to return to prison in later years. Dr. Lynette Antanis, in her article published by Harvard Educational Journal, describes in her article, in the intersection of education and incarceration, how there's only 65% of juvenile prisons, there is an educational system established. That is unacceptable, as it allows for way too many individuals to not have access to something that can really improve their life. However, if compassion and logic win, life will be better for both the inmates and everybody on the outside as well. I'd like you to note these two rooms right here and just kind of observe the differences. This is a prison in Norway, and this is a prison in the United States. And while you might argue that maybe because of the quality of life in the Norway, people would honestly not be discouraged to commit a crime. But you'll also note these numbers up here where Norway has a 20% recidivism rate, which means that only after 2 years, only 20% of inmates will find their way back to jail, whereas we have a 36% rate of that. So, is it the better choice to view inmates as people who simply need to be rehabilitated, who deserve rooms like this, who deserve education, or should we continue to punish them and have a higher return rate? And also, this is from a systemic review of criminal recidivism rates worldwide. Now, for action, what can we do as individuals? Well, honestly, the best way is to donate to advocacy groups. That's kind of the most direct way to find your impact. And one example that I found that seemed quite reliable was the aforementioned Sentencing Project, which has been around for a while. They've testified in front of Congress. They are kind of a watchdog in general and provide a lot of information to the general public about prison reform. But if you don't want to donate, honestly, the best way is to simply pay attention to politics. Make sure at any time with your local ballots, if there's anything that pops up related to prison reform, you look into that and know what your congressperson thinks about these issues. So, in general, the prison system is a failure, and we must provide better conditions for those who make mistakes in life. And I will leave you with one more note, and that is that recently, just to kind of display for you the relevance of paying attention to this, is under the new this is Jeff Sessions, if you did not know that, the previous Attorney General. He actually encouraged more contracts with private prisons, which are largely the result of our current terrible prison conditions. So just know that, and this was also something that I found while using the Sentencing Project, just to show the effectiveness of such sites. So just so you know, this is something that's very relevant right now, happening in politics, and just make sure you pay attention. And you all have a voice, and make sure you use it for those who can.